Against stupidity, we are defenseless. That is a quote from Dietrich Bonhoeffer, an anti-Nazi German theologian who was executed by Adolf Hitler in the final days of the Nazi regime in 1945. We were reminded of that quote in a recent New York Times column by David Brooks, the conservative columnist David Brooks, writing about stupidity. The column was written at the end of the first week of the new Trump presidency, and in it, David Brooks wrote, "We're going to have to learn a lot about stupidity over the next 4 years." It was, for me, the most welcome entry I've read in the New York Times in a while, because one of the words I have been using to describe Donald Trump's actions and statements since he first started lying about President Obama's birth certificate in 2011 is stupid. And it was a lonely position in the world of political commentary then to use the word stupid when most of the political media was still awed by Donald Trump's completely fraudulent image as a successful business person. And they all believed that it's impossible for a successful business guy to be stupid. David Brooks wrote, "I define stupidity as behaving in a way that ignores the question, what would happen next?" Donald Trump appeared to ignore that question when he threatened massive illegal tariffs against Canada and Mexico over the weekend. And right on schedule Monday morning, the stock market told Donald Trump just how stupid his idea was. David Brooks writes, "Stupidity is the tendency to take actions that hurt you and the people around you." And with the stock price of Elon Musk's Tesla dropping Monday morning, along with most other stock prices, Donald Trump then abandoned his threats of tariffs against Mexico and Canada. And before that happened, in his New York Times column on stupidity, David Brooks wrote, "My big prediction for this administration, it will churn out a steady stream of stupid policies, and when the consequences of those policies begin to hit Trump's approval rating, he will flip-flop, diminish, or abandon those policies." And that's exactly what Donald Trump did with his stupid tariff idea on Monday. David Brooks explained why Donald Trump doesn't have the slightest inhibition about being stupid publicly. David Brooks wrote, "People who behave stupidly are unaware of the stupidity of their actions. Incompetent people don't have the skills to recognize their own incompetence." A Montreal newspaper needed only one word to convey the essential truth of Donald Trump's threatened trade war with Canada: stupid. In his column, David Brooks said, "Stupidity is nearly impossible to oppose because stupid actions don't make sense. And so reasonable arguments thrown at stupid ideas just bounce off a solid wall of stupidity." Opposing stupidity. When you listen to Democrats in Congress railing against what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing, they can sound ineffectual because you know that every rational thing the opposition is saying to Donald Trump and to Elon Musk is just bouncing off that solid wall of stupidity. And so the leaders of the Democratic Party in Congress, like Hakeem Jeffries and Democratic leaders of the House of Representatives, have to run the risk of sounding ineffectual to you when they rise up in opposition to taking life-saving medicine from babies around the world, as Donald Trump and Elon Musk have done this week. What are you going to do about it? Is the question that every Democratic member of Congress is getting from their constituents. What are you going to do about it? The Democrats in Congress are facing something that no other opposition party in Congress has ever faced in the history of this country: a president joined every day by the richest person in the world in publicly and flagrantly violating the law. When President Richard Nixon wanted to break the law, he did it in private. He didn't go out and do it publicly. He didn't do it at microphones. President Ronald Reagan, before he was ever elected to public office, was a very vocal opponent of Medicare when Congress was debating whether to enact Medicare in 1965. Ronald Reagan said Medicare would destroy America. Ronald Reagan said behind it will come other federal programs that will invade every area of freedom as we have known it in this country until one day, as Norman Thomas said, we will awake to find that we have socialism. Ronald Reagan was an anti-Medicare fanatic. And when Ronald Reagan became president, he was the first Republican president who campaigned for the job as an opponent, not just of the Democratic candidate, but as an opponent of government itself. He told jokes about how bad government was, about how government got everything wrong. But Ronald Reagan would not dare to try to abolish Medicare with a so-called executive order. Ronald Reagan would not dare to fire all of the professionals working on Medicare in the executive branch of the government and replace them with idiots who hate Medicare and don't know how it works. Ronald Reagan wouldn't do that because he knew that would be stupid and illegal. Democrats spent days publicly arguing against the Trump-threatened illegal tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Democrats spent days trying to teach voters that this would cost them enormous amounts of money and increased prices. During the presidential campaign, Kamala Harris tried to explain to people that the tariffs Donald Trump was threatening would cost them thousands of dollars a year, and none of that got through. And everything the Democrats said in opposition to the threatened Trump tariffs over the weekend turned out to be a complete waste of time, because all it took was an hour Monday morning of the stock market dropping and telling Donald Trump what to do. And that's when Donald Trump dropped the tariff craziness. Of course, the Democrats were right to oppose those tariffs over the weekend. They had to do that. And they now have the job every day of picking which illegal action of the president's today should they go after the hardest. Which one should they emphasize? And what do you do on a night when Donald Trump says the single stupidest thing that any president has ever said about the Middle East, that the United States of America should own Gaza? Immediately, the breaking news banners go up online and on TV, quoting the words that Donald Trump said. Donald Trump saying everyone loves the idea of the United States owning Gaza. He actually said that. It is impossible to respond to stupidity that deep and profound. Donald Trump said Gaza is going to be the Riviera of the Middle East. This is the guy who didn't build anything in the United States of America during his first presidency, even though he had Infrastructure Week every month. The Infrastructure Week president did not build anything. None of the airports being rebuilt in America tonight, none of the roads being rebuilt in America tonight, none of the bridges being rebuilt in America, bridges that will save lives, none of those are being rebuilt because of Donald Trump. Not 1 inch of infrastructure in the United States exists or is planned because of Donald Trump. Joe Biden did that, and Hakeem Jeffries did that in the House of Representatives, and Chuck Schumer did that in the United States Senate. And they have to listen tonight to the liar who talked about Infrastructure Week all the time and never built a thing, saying the United States is going to own Gaza and turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. The United States is never going to own 1 inch of Gaza. Not one thing Donald Trump said about Gaza tonight will happen. Not one thing Donald Trump said about Gaza tonight is true. Donald Trump was asked, are the Saudis demanding a Palestinian state? And his answer was, no, they're not. Nope. And immediately, after the President of the United States lied to the world in that press conference, Saudi Arabia issued a written statement saying the Ministry of Foreign Affairs affirms that the position of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on the establishment of the Palestinian state is a firm, unwavering position, and His Highness the Prime Minister has affirmed this position in a clear and explicit manner that does not allow for any interpretation under any circumstances. In other words, Saudi Arabia immediately called Donald Trump a liar after he said that about Saudi Arabia, after he said that Saudi Arabia is not demanding a Palestinian state. There was no news in anything Donald Trump said in that press conference, no real news, because nothing he said had any meaning. But he managed to hijack the programming of some news networks so that they are not talking about life-saving medicine being blocked from children. And they're not talking about starvation, preventing food that the United States Agency for International Development is not delivering tonight because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk, who decided to illegally shut down that agency, stop all the employees of USAID around the world from doing their jobs. There is a famine in Sudan, and USAID had food shipments on the way that Elon Musk decided to stop because Elon Musk does not believe those people in Africa should be fed. He apparently does not believe that they have a right to life. The richest person in the world decided that the poorest people in the world should starve. The richest person in the world decided that the poorest people in the world should die. And the President of the United States, who lied about Gaza in that press conference tonight, was not asked a single question about why he is blocking life-saving medicine to babies, to mothers, to grandmothers, and why he's blocking the delivery of food to starving people. Not one question. Because he threw out that madness about Gaza becoming the Riviera of the Middle East. And the reporters fell for it. The reporters chased it. The reporters all wanted to waste their questions on the infrastructure week goofiness of that press conference. Every single question they asked Donald Trump about infrastructure during his first presidency was a wasted question. And every single question they asked tonight about the United States owning Gaza was a wasted question. The starving people dependent on food from USAID, the sick people dying dependent on medicine and medical care from USAID, did not hear a question asked on their behalf tonight by the White House press corps. It is painful to be living under an administration that David Brooks identifies as being run by stupidity. That's the New York Times conservative columnist identifying them that way. But imagine how much more painful it is to be in Sudan tonight hoping for food that never comes and not knowing why. Imagine how painful it is to watch your mother die or watch your baby die because the richest person in the world has decided to deprive them of medicine and medical care. I understand people wanting to turn away from all of this. Sometimes I wish I could. I really wish I could. But some people have taken an oath not to turn away.